Tell me about your songwriting process. Do you write the songs, yeah?
Yeah.
So tell me about the songwriting process.
Well,
like, are you
for
a
what
lyrics man
project?
First? Are you talk about the band first. Silent
Laika.
Laika. Tell me how you write the songs.
It sort of changed over the years.
Yeah.
It started as pretty much just a solo project where I wrote a load of tunes. I don't know, back then I didn't really think a lot about writing.
Yeah.
Like I have a very different relationship to songwriting now than I did back then.
Yeah.
Because I've learnt a lot.
Yeah.
I've sort of taught myself to have a routine in writing and to just actually just sit down, write, even if you feel like you don't have anything to write about.
But do you start with lyrics or do you?
Usually, yeah. It sort of depends, but lately, it depends on what project I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing a solo project, which is, I had a collection of lyrics like for 12, 15 tunes that were all around the same subject. So I felt that they could easily be made into an album, right? But so I started with the lyrics on that one. But with Silent Laika, usually now we do I do sessions with each of the band members individually. So I go to want to go to Berlin and visit our bass player. I haven't done that yet, but do sessions with him.
Yeah.
I do sessions with our keyboard player. I do sessions with our drummer in their studios, and we sort of collect all the demos, all the music demos, and then I sort of write the lyrics on my own.
Okay. And what's the difference with? How do you pronounce it? Maroc.
Maroc.
What's the difference?
In Maroc, largely we write together all the time, but if not, then I mean it does vary a lot as well, because the guy I do it with does beats as well.
Yeah.
A lot of beats, and he sent this new album we're doing. It's like a concept album, which is meant to be like a manuscript of like a film script, but wrapped. So it's got like camera angles, and it's got like what do you call it? Notes, with emotion or without or whatever. And then it's like this, but that was based on 3 beats that my better half Anton does. That he sent me that were really like Tokyo Drift sort of dark and really heavy.
So in that
beats.
project you are more the lyrical.
Sort of, but then I make some beats, and then I send him them, and he sort of think, okay, can you send me the stems for that, and then we sort of send it back and forth, and then, but most of the time we meet up.
And is there any crossover between the two? So the guy you work with on Maroc, is there any crossover with the band?
Not other than me, not really.
Separate, right?
No. He's got nothing to do with the band, and the band have got nothing to do with him. Although we might get the bass player to do some stuff on the Maroc record. Yeah. So that's
and is it one of the projects you see sort of a bigger development with, or do you think they've both got some?
I really enjoy having all 3 projects to work on, my solo stuff as well, because I feel like it makes it easier for me to wake up and just work, and it doesn't matter what I'm writing, because eventually it will fit into something. I wrote this free writing, 20-minute free writing which was meant to be, or it was about a dream, and then it sort of ended up being like having this sister in it called Laura, and had this long narrative, and then I thought, okay, this could actually, at the end of it, when I finished and looked at it, I was like, okay, this could actually fit into the Maroc album, because it's meant to be like a 15-minute narrative, and then, or the real time of it is 15 minutes, and then there's like objects in the car that sort of branch out into stories of his childhood and his dad who died or whatever. It's like, and then this dream could like really fit in on that album. But I didn't think of it as being for that project.
So is there something then? Because that makes me think that there's something. You're involved in all 3 of these projects, obviously the solo one, obviously, but is there something, a particular theme, a particular idea that links the three of them? Is there something that you always write about, or is there something that always kind of inspires you writing, or is there a lot of different topics, or the change between the music?
Yeah, not really. I will say though, lately my writing's become much more concrete, because I've started out having this idea that writing has to be poetical. It has to have this poetic, like use big metaphors and all this.
Yeah.
And I just realised after reading a lot and after having a lot of teaching in writing that sometimes the smallest, most concrete things are the most poetic in a whole lyric. So I've become much more concrete and much less afraid of writing something mundane, because I used to be afraid that my lyrics would be boring, and then I started thinking that actually they can never become that boring. Like if you just then I started listening to like Sun Kill Moon or Mount Erie and thinking like, well, they just basically do everything, like write about the date. Like, I don't care what the date is, but then again, I do care what the date is, because it certainly sets the scene for what, and it's a vibe. So I tried doing that a lot for the late Silent Laika album, and I still like that. But I might branch out to it, but it depends on what I'm doing.
I think, I've heard some of your music, and I think the strand I've noticed between it is that you tell stories in your music. I mean, you talk about being abstract, you tell a story in your songs, and that is an important thing. In a way, for me, that's the kind of music I like. I'm always into music that tells a bit of a story, so obviously, for me, that feels like that's part of what you're doing.
I was always very into Alex Turner as a child, and Arctic Monkeys as a child, and I always admired the way that he did that, told stories, and I was like, got to do something like that. Yeah. But I still had this idea that it had to be poetic. And I think that's how I've evolved, because the first
both of those, isn't it? It is poetic and stories. So.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a difference between, like, you can feel when poetry's forced, when it's like when you have this idea of I've got to get this word in because this is nice, or I've got to get this metaphor somehow fixed. The whole lyric is fixed around this one metaphor, and I'm like, then the rest of it becomes a bit dull. Yeah. So I focus less on the abstract level of it in general, because the first record we did with Silent Laika, I've really thought about what was this is great, this metaphor is great, or whatever. It probably is shit, to be honest now, but I mean, I think it definitely helped me to write, to not be afraid of the mundane in general, because when you're afraid of writing something that's going to be boring, then it's going to be hard to write anything at all. You're going to end up writing very few lines, because then it's got to be very dramatic or one way or another.
Then you turn into American football.
Yeah, basically. I
think for me, the bands like The Streets, I don't know how familiar you are with The Streets, but
I know
The Streets album is a concept album fully about just getting into a relationship and getting out of a relationship and that concept, and that is very mundane, but actually it turns into a really beautiful piece of work because it's about something that everybody can connect to. So. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people think that I stumble across this quite a few times, that people think that the more abstract it is, the more people can connect to it.
Yeah.
That if it gets very concrete, if you tell a story from your perspective, then no one can connect to it because it's your story. No. But I just don't think that's necessarily true.
Absolutely not.
Because I think it's beyond that. People can see beyond that. You weren't in. I did 3 songs about Nick and my dad's stroke that he had in a summer house when I was like 12.
Yeah.
And those are like, the lyrics are so boring in a way, and they're so like, I don't think anyone has experienced that in that way, but because it's so specific, I tell them it's in the north of Denmark, in a summer house with my mum's friend and her daughter Clara, who's the same age as I, and I go through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And still, a lot of people came to me and asked if it was like a love song, and like, so I think you can take, and some lines of it are sort of ambiguous, but it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
That's the main point. I think if you go into, that's another point. If you go into a tune thinking, going to writing thinking, I need to get this out, I need to get this, I have this this point to make, or this what do you call it?
If you have a story that if you go into songwriting, and I'm not a songwriter, I feel if you go into a song with the idea that I want this to be about, say, depression, or I want it to be about, and then you try and hammer that home, it becomes too obvious. But if you go in and you just tell a story, it can be really effective.
Yeah.
And I think I noticed that. You notice that straight away in songwriting. Someone wants you to think something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's exceptions
Exactly.
to it. Like you look at a band like Idols at the minute, they write pro-immigration songs, and they're very clear that that's what it's about, and that's good because it's that style of music. But if you're writing the sort of kind of music you write, you've got to blur that line a little bit. But
And I also think I recently went to an exhibition with a Danish, she did like ceramics sculptures out of plaster, I think it's called. And there was like a little documentary with her. She was talking about every piece of her art making just a bit of something of the invisible visible, like just a tiny flake of it, of the invisible visible, which is, I think, a good way of looking at art, making something that wasn't visible before visible, because it's all of a sudden the one piece of the one tune doesn't have to grasp a whole, like everything.
yeah,
Because if you go into it being like, you've got to write about depression, it's a massive subject, right? Or anything, just having or seeing your dad have a stroke is a massive thing in itself, but you can't encapsulate the whole thing entirely. I can only just show a bit of it.
but if you capture that little moment that loads of other people relate to, then you fucking nailed it, haven't you? You've got a song there that means a lot to people.
That's it.
Yeah.
Although I don't know who even caught that.
What
Never
about
know.
influences? You mentioned a couple of, like you mentioned Alex Turner. What about influences? Do you think you have a lot of people who influence your songwriting, or?
I don't know. I try not to idolize too much. I used to idolize a lot, but I've tried to go away from that because it becomes much harder actually writing if you've got like a person in the back of your mind like, oh, this is great, I've just got to be like that.
Yeah.
And even if you do nail it, it's going to be an exact copy of something else. And I try not to idolize too much, but of course there are people that I am inspired by and I do listen to, but a lot of the stuff I listen to a lot of classical music lately. I've been listening to a lot of Debussy and a lot of Isao Tumita, who does like synth covers of Debussy. It's mad. And so I don't really listen, but I do, I mean, I have listened to The Cure and stuff. I get a lot of I always get, oh, you sound like King Cruel. I get that all the time.
Right.
Because the way I sing, yeah, I can hear it as well. But I don't think the tunes.
As someone who doesn't really like King Cruel, I don't pick that up.
Thank you.
But then I know people love King Cruel. I mean, someone I know, I don't know if this.
I sort of like King Cruel.
Trying to put this out, I don't know if this is offensive. I hope it's not. But when Nick first played your music to me, something that reminded me of was some of the stuff that Pete Doherty's done in his solo stuff. Which for me, that's a compliment because I'm a big fan.
I haven't heard that.
Right. Okay. I mean, you know Pete Doherty, you know Libertines, you know. Yeah. He did a solo album called Arcady, which was very different to the Libertines stuff. And obviously Pete Doherty's quite a controversial person. Some people hate him, some people love him. But like that solo album for me, I thought was great. And when Nick first played your Silent Laika, I was like, oh, he's obviously a big Pete Doherty fan. But it turns out you're not.
Never heard it. Yeah. That was the same with King Cruel though. I'd never heard him until we played a gig in Copenhagen, and someone went up to me and was like, "Oh, you sound a lot like King Cruel. Are you inspired by him?" And I was like, I have no idea who that is. Yeah. Then I went home and listened to it. I did actually like the latest, no, not the latest album, the one before that.
Right.
6 feet on, no.
Yeah, I've only heard the latest
beneath
one.
the moon or something like that. But I like that. Anyway, I don't know. I listen to a lot. I try not to idolize basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my childhood idols, Alice Turner and Jimi Hendrix. I love Jimi Hendrix, but I realised quite early on that I can't be as good as a guitar as him, so I sort of segued into writing instead. Although, I mean, I like a lot of guys. Nick Cave, love Radiohead, obviously. I mean, it'd be a big
it should be right to say obviously, but some people don't like Radiohead, which is weird.
Yeah, obviously I like Radiohead, but I don't know. I try to get around a lot of different genres.
I see so.
Yeah, I reckon so. It's alright.
Done 15 minutes. I reckon we've got something there.